welcome to Dialogue. Government officials, financial leaders, scholars, and even Nobel-prize winners are convening in Shanghai for the Lujiazui Forum, an annual meeting examining pressing financial matters around the world. What will be the focus of this year's forum? What role does finance play in mitigating such challenges like climate change and an aging population? And what opportunities can Shanghai, as a top international financial hub, offer to the rest of the world and further consolidate its global competitiveness? In the second half of the show, we'll also talk about the reform of the global currency architecture. Join us for our discussion today from Beijing. I'm Xu Qinduo. Joining me today are Rodrigo Zeidan, Professor of Practice of Economics and Finance at York University Shanghai, Wang Dan, Chief Economist of Hang Seng Bank in China, and Professor John Gong from University of International Business and Economics. Welcome to Dialogue. Wang Dan, I will start with you. The theme of this year's Lujiazui Forum will be centered on how China's high-level financial development can help promote world economic growth by addressing various global issues. First, can you help us better define the meaning of high-level financial development? Where are we in terms of this financial development in China?
Well, the financial development has many levels and many different aspects. When we talk about a high-level financial development, it's all about how the financial system, especially banking, can support the real economy. So we know that a capital market, wealth management market are also very important, but the speculative element of those markets are not really aligned with China's long-term economic strategy. Right now, in the past 2 years, actually China has been through this transition of changing the bank's focus from the traditional industries, especially property sector, to the emerging industries, especially high-tech. And that has been accelerated with a lot of the new regulatory framework. So I'd say we're at the start of a new age for financial system.
Rodrigo, what's your take of the China's financial development, particularly in terms of supporting its economic growth?
So there is a balance. President Xi Jinping was talking about this this week, and the idea here is how to open up a little bit the financial system, make it more sophisticated, but do it in a way that does not make the system prone to financial crisis. So he emphasized the role of financial regulation, financial supervision, and credit ratings as well. So the idea a little bit is there is always a balance between financial innovation and what we call systemic risk. So if you deregulate financial systems, you create the possibility of financial crisis. If you regulate it too tightly, the financial system is inefficient. So the whole point of this approach of high-level finance is how to balance these two objectives in a way that supports the Chinese long-term growth strategy.
Well, John, obviously, balancing these two goals is a challenge. On one hand, you don't want to see the financial risks, which could be devastating in the worst form. And at the same time, you want it to play a positive role to stimulate, to support the economic expansion. How is China doing in that respect?
Well, I think you're absolutely right that it is a difficult task to strike a balance between the two goals. But I think in the past we've been seeing more of a advancement on the risk side, less development or less advancement on the development side, or in pace with the development of the real economy. I think from central government's perspective, there are several policy objectives in my view. Other than in support of the real economy, which we call the real economy, there are also other goals. For example, the inclusive financing is a goal, helping with small and medium-sized businesses. Mitigating risk, obviously, is another goal, and also the goals regarding China's high-quality development for things like new energy development, high-tech development, high technology development, and a couple of other sort of cutting-edge things on the emerging on the horizon. So I think from the finance community, has to keep up with that. I think, in the past, the finance sector has been too much tied up to the property market, for example, too much tied to the speculative finance and under pretext of financial innovation or fintech, that kind of thing. So I think, we really take a step back and look at what the real role that finance can play in our society and in our economy. I think China has its strengths in the sense that we have a history of finance going back thousands of years. And I think today, even though there are many new forms of finance development in equity market, in various other type of markets, bond markets, and the VC market, but I think at the end of the day, we still have to keep in mind that finance is all about helping with the real economy, as President Xi has said. I think this reminds me of a famous saying by Winston Churchill, that he said that he would rather see the British industries to be more content and finance to be less comfortable, less confident. So I think that resonates with the theme that it's really about the real economy, about the production, about meeting the demand of people. Finance is a tool, it's a means to an end, it's not the end.
Well, Wang Dan, indeed, if you look at the topics of the forum, it touches upon some of the real challenges, I would say, for many countries, not only China. For example, aging population or aging finance here, green finance, and inclusive finance, as mentioned by John. Let's start with, let's say aging or inclusive finance. Tell us, what does it exactly mean to people who are not familiar with this topic? Inclusive finance, is it aiming to help the low-income group people?
Inclusive finance mostly means that financial services has to reach the low-income group, the vulnerable group in the economy. And those people in China are mostly living in the rural area. Urban area, of course, we have low-income population, but still, comparing to the average income in rural region, the urban population usually earn twice as much. So when we talk about the commercial bank's service in rural China, they are far from being sufficient. For example, a lot of the rural residents still don't have a bank account. Of course, the fintech industry eventually sort of bridged the gap in a way in the past 5 years. But still, for a lot of the aging population and low-income population, they still need more of a targeted approach from the commercial banks. Usually, the agricultural bank would take the role because they have the most branches. But usually, we can see that even the closest branch to a typical village is more than 4 or 5 hours of traveling. And that means the marginal cost of providing better services will be quite low. And with aging population, there's also a lot of cost in time and education. So there has to be a higher or more important role played by the private sector by investing more in those in-person services and online services.
But let's say, out of this forum, the government will produce some less specific policies to help this low-income portion of the population. What kind of policies do you expect? What can we do specifically to help this group of people?
One important thing is about how the commercial banks in China can help the self-employed or the small and micro firms, because a lot of those low-income population are actually employed in those gig economy or the informal economy, and usually those jobs don't come with the social security. So there has to be a way that they can get a relatively easy access to credit, which is a problem because the central bank and central government have been trying to lower the financing cost. But when we look at the real cost of those micro firms, in the past 4 years, they were on average still about 8% or even higher. And usually they still need a collateral with their private property. And housing is losing value in the past 2 years, and that's not helping. So maybe there's a way that we can use their personal profile in collaboration with the e-platform or some online platform to help targeting better of those services to these people.
So Rodrigo, of course, this is not unique to China. This kind of, the challenge, let's say, to help the the low-income proportion of any population in the world. There any, say, practice, mature enough to copy or to learn from, or what are how, any differences in terms of meeting the challenges in different countries?
The unique challenge in China is that a lot of the reach of the financial system has been through the non-banking system. So as we all use payment systems like Alipay, WeChat, in China, the banking system has mostly dealt with large firms. And one of the changes of the properties of this crisis in the property sector, but also this focus on high-level finance, is to make the banks actually do a little bit better job banking people. Because right now, banks, a lot of us don't use banks anymore, right? Mm-hmm. We use our banks through our apps. And again, it's not because these firms are necessarily the best. It's just because the banks themselves have mostly dealt with large firms. So one of these main challenges is how to integrate all these people in a better banking system. And what shouldn't happen in China is necessarily microfinance, which is an experience that has been done around the world, especially for the self-employed or for the very low-income population, microcredits, these solutions in which people end up paying a lot of interest, but don't really get access, and is really a mess. And China is already an upper middle income country, so doesn't need to go that route. But really, what you're going to need is financial supervision that makes banks a little bit more eager to open other avenues of credit that right now are underfunded and under-networked around the country.
Mm-hmm. People are calling for, this financial, in a sense, assistance, to help deal with these challenges in climate change, aging population through the financial means. Tell us in what way, financing can help or should probably play a role in dealing with those challenges.
We have a big challenge for families in China because the aging population is compounded by the 4-to-1 problem, in which you have many families that are very small, and this Chinese social norms in which people are supposed to help their parents retire, because retirement age is early in China. What happens today is that people are not financially sophisticated, and the market doesn't offer sophisticated products for people. And for people who are going to retire and help their parents retire, they are going to need to access financially robust products. And they mostly don't exist, or they may exist, but people don't know about them, and people don't have a tradition of making 20, 30-year financial investments.
I'm a little bit more optimistic. I think, say our generation, maybe people about 10 years older than we are, we have a different attitude. Do you think that we actually banking our children for retirement? I don't think so. I think a lot of people are already preparing for their retirement. Mm-hmm. They understand that they should be on their own, right? And they're doing a lot of savings, and that's why I think the consumption is not that much, because the saving rate is pretty high, and people are planning for their retirement. So I see less of an issue. I think, how do we encourage people to still create wealth, at the same time spend money and consume? That's a healthy thing for the economy, and we need to encourage people of doing this. I think people are planning too much and too pessimistic about their future.
With that, we come to the end for the first half of the program. Many thanks to our guests. Previously, I also talked with Busani Nkabweni, Director General of the National School of Government in South Africa, on the reform of the global currency architecture. Stay tuned.